Hello, everybody. It's great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, president, and founder of GSD, Get You Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. We believe at GSD that intellectual capacity is evenly spread, but opportunities are not. With that, I have an incredible guest today. Ping Ye is just won the Startup World Cup competition in Silicon Valley. He's an entrepreneur. He's got a deep background in health tech, and we want to talk about his company. Imagine being able to tell if you have cancer from your breath. With that, I'd like to bring my friend Ping on. Hi, Ping. How are you today?
Great. Thanks for having me, Gary.
So from engineering to health tech, can you share how your background in nanotechnology and mechanical engineering led you to co-found StemoniX and later Vocxi?
Stemonics and Vocxi Health. Well, when you're making millions of hard drives a year to support the information storage consumption for the world, you have to make lots of hard drives and solid state drives. And so that background of doing very difficult high technology at scale helped in scaling up biology, which is what we did at Stemonics, and then now scaling up these quantum sensors for Vocxi Health. So it's all about making sure that it can go to ideally millions of people here.
So, turning the adversity into innovation, Ping, how did surviving blood cancer influence your decision to pivot and into medical innovation and entrepreneurship? How did it affect your life? How did it change your life?
Well, as maybe some of your previous listeners know, I'm a cancer survivor, as you just mentioned, blood cancer. And well, you go through a lot of experiences when you have a diagnosis like that. For me, it took many months, over 6 months to figure out what exactly was going on. And so you really get put into the perspective of the patient. And that patient experience is how I see a lot of what we do, whether it's pushing hard every day to move the ball forward or to fundraise or to navigate the challenges of being an entrepreneur. And so I think it provides a lot of passion to keep driving forward in difficult times.
How different are you today, after going through that? How do you look at life differently as opposed to before the blood cancer?
Maybe put simply, you kind of celebrate life, celebrate each day. The relationships that you have, whether it's with friends and family, mean just that little bit more because you could lose it, and so I think it's exactly that. It's celebrating the simple things in life. Kind of like at the regional competition in Silicon Valley at the Computer History Museum for the Pegasus Startup World Cup, I had a moment that I never had before, which was to have my mom in the audience. Because I grew up in Mountain View, so why not invite your mom? Well, my dad passed away, unfortunately, from pancreatic cancer many years ago, but my mom took care of my dad years before me, and then she helped take care of me. Well, I was, long story short, my family and I were visiting California for my grandfather's birthday, and when I got ill, I just stayed in California. So my mom had a big role in taking care of me. And so it was a really special moment to have her in the audience and to be lucky enough to receive the recognition that we did was extra special. And it's really nice to be able to thank her for everything that she's done for me, and it was a really special moment.
For your early influences, were there any pivotal moments or mentors during your time at UC San Diego or early career that shaped your approach to innovation?
too many mentors to thank all of them, but whether it's my advisor at UC San Diego, Professor Talca, and the, I think, dozens of ones I've had in my earlier career as an entrepreneur at Seagate Technology, and I led a global development effort with Samsung and Seagate, and then Dell, I think, and then the last over 10 years in the health technology pivot that I did the last 10, 12 years. Too many, Heinen, Joe, and Steven Snyder. I mean, so many people that had a influential role on how I see entrepreneurship, and of course Bob Pekovich, my co-founder on Stemonic. So there's just so many people that come into your life that really change how you see the world and how you do things in the world, how you treat others, and I'm eternally grateful for those people.
What inspired the creation of Vocxi Health, and how does it? I know you were saying that it came out of Boston Scientific, so you've got 40 patents granted and 29 pending. But what really inspired the creation of it, and how does its breath-based diagnostic platform aim to transform healthcare?
Yeah, so the first part was I also did some graduate work at University of Minnesota. They brought me in, and I got to meet this team that was at Boston Scientific and the University of Minnesota, and they started explaining the origin kind of story of how it's happened. And Greg, our chief technology officer, he had shared that he was walking the halls of Mayo Clinic and learned that some of the biggest struggles pulmonologists have is around simply figuring out if nodules, borderline indeterminate nodules discovered in the body, were cancerous or not. It's pretty invasive to do biopsies and surgery, and that comes with risks as well. So if you can non-invasively figure it out, that would shape the world and the patient care pathway quite significantly. And so that was many years ago, and there were no sensors that existed to do that at the level of sensitivity that you could capture VOCs, or volatile organic compounds, from the breath. And so they went to work and met with many professors at the university to figure it out. And so that was kind of the origin story, and it took many years to invent, and hence you mentioned our 40 granted patents, and that's kind of how it started. And then when I joined about 2.5 years ago as an advisor and then as CEO, it was coming out of the pandemic and really thinking about what are people going to want in this post-pandemic world? How will AI and machine learning shape diagnostics? And what's the intersection of those kind of behaviors of society and community with where technology out there in time? And are we going to build something that is going to intersect that desire of people and patients and what they need? And so we went and designed our, can I show our device?
Yeah, show it. Yeah.
Here's our clear version that I often share with people, but this is the kind of form factor. It'll be a more, something like this. That's what we use in our clinical studies today. But it's really about envisioning that, and the team got on board, shaping that vision. And now we're in clinical studies and running many IRB approved studies to really show that this is a platform.
So, you transitioned from corporate environment. I remember I took a couple of years off and work in the corporate environment. In fact, if you did 5 years at the time, you got a pension from HP. And I just thought I would do it for 5 years just to get the corporate environment. I got quite a few promotions during that time and learned a lot and got a lot of free education. But there also, I remember we had meetings to talk about meetings, And after having been an entrepreneur for a long time, it seemed kind of worthless, actually. I mean, it just, I don't know, you got kind of hamstrung and not doing things, just talking about doing things. But in a startup, you got to do it. So how did you transition from Seagate in a corporate environment, right, to leading startups, and how did you overcome those hurdles?
Well, I was always an entrepreneur, and I did strengths-based analysis of who I am just to get to know how I solve problems. And ever since I was in high school and even watching, my dad with his own startup, just kind of, maybe it was just seeing it and breathing it. I always kind of saw things in a more, whether it's entrepreneurial or entrepreneurial way. I helped form several different nonprofits to improve the lives of, whether it's orphans affected by AIDS or scholarships for first-gen students at universities. It was all about creating something that didn't exist before. And I think doing that, I think I caught the bug and interest of and enjoyment of the challenge of creating something new. And so even when I was at Seagate, I was on the R&D side of things, and it was creating technologies that didn't exist before that would completely shape in that time the production manufacturing of millions of things. And in the tech world, things move pretty fast, and you were able to see the technology moving forward and impacting an industry and seeing it before your eyes. So it didn't have to take decades. It literally would shape itself in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and you would see that take place. And so from there, whether it was like the first solid state drive product, for example, that I helped lead a team in, we kind of created something new. And so from those early days, from high school and college and into the early part of my tech career, creating something new wasn't necessarily, it was always there. It was kind of always there. And so when you transition into entrepreneurship, from entrepreneurship inside of a large corporation, some of those skills that you learn in the larger environment come in really, really handy, because there's so much system and processes in corporations to accelerate problem solving and discovery that can be really useful in the startup space. And so it wasn't maybe that difficult of a transition. A lot of the learnings on the startup side was more around, company formation, fundraising, the legal aspects, the branding, marketing, communicating side of things that have to be honed, because on the corporate side, you're a piece of a larger behemoth of an organization. So you may not have to carry all those hats, but I was lucky enough to bring in some of those R&D development skill sets to fit with all the other things.
So, you've learned a lot of lessons as being an entrepreneur. I think one of the things I've learned is that you know that you don't know, right? After doing this for 38 years, you know that you don't know, and you keep your mind open. But what key lessons, if you could say 3 key lessons that you've learned, you'd like to share with other folks that want to innovate in the health tech space and build companies, what 3 lessons have you learned that are important?
You can tell we didn't prep that question, but let me.
I wanted to do it extemporaneously because I want to get you, right from the heart, right?
Yeah,
you're good
at that. You're good at that, Gary. 3 advice for health tech. In terms of creating something new in health tech, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think number one, it's always team. You know, there's so much dynamics. There's a little bit more, I would say, in the health tech space because there's so much infrastructure around it. Understanding the regulatory, the clinical aspects, the reimbursement coverage, all of that can be a super big challenge because I think a lot of health technology companies are created from a really great idea and some technology, and they form something around it. And yet the challenges of getting something to market in the health tech space really depend on the alignment of the ecosystem to support the new creation. So it's more difficult in a regulated environment to say, hey, we've created something really cool. If you build it, they might not always show up, right? If you build it, they'll show up if physicians, and providers get paid, if, there are reimbursement pathways and then there's coverage from payers and all of that. So people like tech folks like ourselves that come into health tech need to build a team of people. And I'm really lucky to have built this team that have brought, I lost track, over 30 FDA approved products to market. And so to have that kind of experienced team be together with this is super I'm super grateful for. So that's number one, is the team. Number two, for startups and entrepreneurs, I think, as with even in the tech side of the world, there's so many twists and turns, so many things that you aren't prepared. You're prepared for in terms of your skills and what you've learned in life. But there are things that happen that are out of your control that you have to kind of adjust to. And so the second piece of advice, if I were to summarize, is if you have the passion for whatever you're doing, you need to have the resilience and the thoughtfulness to navigate those challenges. And I think every day when I wake up, I don't know if we covered this the last time, but I ask myself 3 critical questions every morning to help me have the resilience and to navigate these challenges. And those 3 questions are, what am I grateful for? So gratitude. The second is around intention, which is, where did I live my intention yesterday? Because that keeps you on track. So that if you tomorrow, if you're going to ask if your tomorrow self is going to ask you, where did I live my intention yesterday? That tomorrow's yesterday is today. And so that really keeps you on track. And then the third are, what are the musts that need to get done today? And it's not 100 things, because we all, as entrepreneurs, and we have a lot of things on our plates, and our teams have a lot on their plates. But what are the 1, 2, or 3 critical things that need to get done today? And how do you filter out the noise to get those things done? And so number 2 is all of that. I gave a little bit of hopefully some nuggets for the listeners and viewers on how I approach that. Because if you can have the gratitude, it puts you in the right state to be able to manage the twists and turns, and to have the intention to go after the right things that you need to accomplish in the next week, 30 days, and 60 days, 90 days. And then to break that down into little pieces to get better, 1% better every day. Because over the course of a couple of years, that improvement of the organization, 1% better every day, is in a year 37 times better, which is a massive improvement. So if you can do that and be a multiplier for yourself, but for the whole team, then you have a high performing team. back to number one. So those are top two, not to take up too much of this conversation, but those are the top two that are super important that I've learned and I've learned from my mentors.
No, that's great. And so, going down through, how do you balance the demands of leading innovative companies with your own personal life, Ping? And how do you maintain the balance?
I think over the last several decades, there's been a lot of research on this. That people talk about balance. I think I did a TED Talk once about, sometimes people see balance as balancing the high intensity of work with the high intensity of play. And the TED Talk was about actually the high intensity of play and the high intensity of work are actually on the same side of the teeter-totter. If you want to balance that high intensity effort, you want to counterbalance it with things that are the opposite. It's rest and recovery, it's prayer, it's meditation, it's taking a walk in the forest without looking at your phone. So I think that's one way to achieve balance. And I think more recently there's the concept of integration, which is, hey, there are very successful entrepreneurs that have said, hey, there is actually no balance in the entrepreneurship experience. There's only integration of integrating life's moments with family and friends with entrepreneurship. And I think there's some truth to that. I still like the idea of balance, because without balance, you can crack, you can get health issues, you can have overwhelming stress. So I think that's still important, but I do understand the truths of integration, because being an entrepreneur, and one of the big things that may be slightly different than corporate, I took my corporate role pretty seriously. So kind of like an entrepreneurship job, which means it was 24/7. But it's maybe more 24/7 in the startup world. So it's wherever possible, integrating the family and friends stuff and personal time into the 24/7 life of an entrepreneur. And so I think those are kind of two modes of thought that you have to do, and then there's different management tools that people can learn to integrate each of one's aspects of life. One tool is like the wheel of life. So you can break down different major aspects of your life and rate them on a 1 to 10 scale, like a wheel, like spokes in a wheel. And once you reflect on those aspects of life, if there are ones that are not getting the attention, because there's intention and attention, and you might have the intention to address these different spokes in life, but if you don't put attention to some of them, they might get rated a 3, 4, 5, or 6. And as you imagine this wheel acting like a wheel and turning, it's going to be a pretty bumpy ride if certain spokes of the wheel are not at the same levels of the others. And so there's tools like that help you achieve balance and help you integrate those important things into your overall life to make the experience of being a startup entrepreneur as palatable, enjoyable, and as exciting as it can be.
So you go down through one of the things, when you have these kind of experience like cancer, you change your personality changes a bit. How has your personality changed in terms of empathy and compassion in the workplace? Have you changed at all, or are they the same as before you had cancer?
I think it's again, it's seeing through the eyes of the patient, the struggles. Seeing also my dad's experience, and he passed away after 6 months, and navigating the very challenging, large health systems. Sometimes it's having a heart for the oncologists, having a heart for all the nurses, and seeing, especially post-pandemic, on top of all of that, the challenges that our health system has to care for people. It's really challenging. I mean, I've had a chance to meet a lot of like chief nursing officers and them leading thousands of nurses and staffing through the post-pandemic experience. They are the heroes. I mean, and then as patients, we integrate into their lives. It's an appreciation for all of that. That is just an appreciation. But in terms of how cancer affect my view, I mean, I think it shapes it a little bit. You're kind of born with certain with your genes and the whole genetics and behavior and family and culture, and cancer then is this new experience that can definitely influence all of that. Of course, more gratefulness. It kind of amplifies who you are. If you're one way, let's say a negative viewing person on life, it will amplify that. If you're positive, it might amplify that. If you're a caring person or a grateful person, it'll amplify it. So any kind of stressful experience, whether it's having kids, will push you to your edge of knowing who you are and testing who you are. So whether it's cancer, kids, a life event, it will push you to the edge of your capacity to handle that thing. And if you get through it, that struggle will shape new learning on who you are as a person. And so I think my hat's off to entrepreneurs, and because at the Startup World Cup, it's really a collection of creators who've gone through personal challenges and overcome and achieve personal victories to then have an opportunity to be on stage in front of 500 people, standing room, to cut open a vein and share something with the world that didn't exist before. And so that was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, that's great. So Ping, we're coming up to the top of the show. Closing thoughts, and how do people get a hold of you?
LinkedIn is always an easy one. Ping.ye at voxihealth.com is another way. That's the easiest ways to get a hold of me. And closing thoughts? No, just grateful for you. You do a lot for the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and you don't have to do what you're doing to highlight companies and people's journeys, but you do it, and it's been fun getting to know you, and all of the folks going through the GSD cohorts have really improved. You could tell which companies, like Eric's company, AI for Pet, he did a phenomenal job as well at the event, but everybody improved 10x after going through and working with you. And so it was just maybe a shout out to you and your whole team, actually, to help us become better entrepreneurs so that we can bring our technologies to help more people around the world.
No, it's great. And it's been a pleasure. It was a pleasure getting to know you, and a pleasure to maintain our relationship. And oh, by the way, I'll be with P-Hong on Sunday. We're going to have lunch together in Silicon Valley. So it's kind of nice reconnecting with my buddy, from many, many years. So And how do people get a hold of you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, the LinkedIn and the email,
Okay.
ping.yay@vocxihealth.com.
Thanks, Ping, for taking time out of your busy schedule. I appreciate it. And if you could stay on after the show for a minute, that would be great. And to all of you out there, thank you for joining Top Global Startups. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And we'll be back to you again soon with another exciting edition. Thanks, everybody.